So I am back to my create new file page or file new. And instead of clicking on HDTV 1080, we will click on custom. So I click on custom. I have the screen up. Again, you have a choice of template files if you want, and it does save. These are my recent files. But what I'm going to do is I'll call this class 1. So I will name my file. It's already set to 1920 pixels by 1080 pixels, so that's perfect. Here's my pixels. I'm not doing inches, but again, if you're printing, you'd switch it to inches and you would change your width and height, maybe to 10 by 8 by 10 inches, maybe 10 by 8 inches, maybe 8.5 by 11. Artboards, I will be going with, I'll go with 5 artboards. It's arbitrary, okay? If you look at advanced options, we are at RGB color. Everything looks great there. I'm scrolling with my middle mouse to see if everything looks fine. I click on more settings. All right, I'm at 20 pixels. That's good. One thing that I didn't do the last time, you have a thing called columns. So we have 5 artboards. I'm going to have 5 columns. So they'll just line up directly horizontally across my screen. I like the number 5 better than 3 or 4 anyway, so even if I had 10 artboards, I'm sure I would be putting 5 columns, but again, it's your choice. I like a little distance between my artboards, so I'm at 200 pixels per inch. Okay, it says web large, it's fine, doesn't matter. We're in pixels, orientation is horizontal, and we look good, and it's create document. So here you have a document that looks a lot more normal. So that is what is very nice. You don't have any green lines or anything else. So now we are ready to create our file setup. You might have some palettes around. These are palettes. Okay, who knows what came on your screen, but you'll notice that I can click on a title bar and move it around. Okay, if I click on the X, it gets rid of the palette. There's also other palettes on this main palette. All right, so I have symbols, brushes, swatches. You have 4 lines to the right on all palettes, and that gives you a menu. So with palettes, you can look at different sizes. Like here, this is a swatch palette, so that you see small thumbnails, medium thumbnails. So there's different sizes that you can click on. We'll worry about that later. You can also click on these 2 little arrows here to collapse your palette. See how it made it nice and small. And there's some dark little lines here, dots. You can click on that to move it around. Here's the 3 different palettes within the one main palette. Then you click back onto this little expansion arrows, and now I'm back to my main palette. I'm going to click on the X and close out this palette. Also be aware though that there's icons at the bottom of these palettes, and there's a garbage can, so we'll get through all the palettes later, but I'll click on the X because I want to start out with my file nice and clean. This is a layer palette. We're going to close that out too, but you will notice again up in the upper corner you have these 4 lines. It gives you its menu. Okay, I'll close that out so we all start out the same. This is a palette for me. It's artboards. Again, I have no idea what shows up on your screen. And I will click on the X here. But this artboard palette is these 5 artboards that I have created. So I'll close that out. This is my toolbar. Okay, so I like to keep to the left. All right. Keep in mind if you hit Command plus on a Mac or Control plus on a PC. So on a Mac, if you do a Command plus, that is a shortcut. And the same shortcut on a PC would be Control plus. Same thing as if I hit Option on a Mac, you hit Alt on a PC. That's the only really main difference. So if I hit Command minus, it makes my file smaller. This gray area is a work area. You can put drawings there. You can put all kinds of things there to use as your work area. And then what prints out is what's in these white boxes. These are your 5 individual files within Well, these are your 5 individual artboards within one main file. As I said earlier, you can print these separately and save them separately. You can drag between any of these files back and forth, so it really is very nice. Command plus on a Mac or Control plus on a PC means you will magnify your screen. Command R on a Mac, Control R on a PC shows you rulers around the border, so you can see my rulers in the border. This is pixels. Keep in mind, if I right-click in my rulers, I could actually change it to inches, so it's very easy to convert. And then I can right-click again and go back into pixels. So maybe you're doing accessories and you aren't comfortable with millimeters or centimeters. You could work in inches and then convert it at the end into millimeters and centimeters. So it's really nice and handy for conversions. I hit Command plus or Control plus to magnify my screen. There's also something that's very important before we get into our palettes, opening them up, and there's a thing called preferences. So if you go into Command K, that will get you to your preferences. And click on preferences, and you can get to it that way. I'll click on General, and there you go. But I prefer Command K on a Mac or Control K on a PC to get to preferences. You really want to be fast. All right, in the general preferences, the key areas here, one is keyboard increment. So we won't play with that too much in this class 1, but here you can set the distance that an object will move if you use your up, down, and side arrows on your keyboard. So that's to the right of your keyboard at the bottom. So that adjusts that, and that's really handy when you're doing something really very precise. We don't want double click to isolate on. For me, it's not on. I'm not sure how it is on yours setup, but that means if you are working on a file, you can select something and then double click on your screen, and it'll freeze the rest of your file except for what you selected. Then you can edit it. You use that if you don't know layers. I'm going to be teaching you layers in this class, and that is the effective way to use Illustrator. If you use layers, you're going to be 10 times as fast. So we're going to keep double click to isolate turned off. Scale, stroke, and effects. That is important if you're drawing something really small and then you're going to make it really big, because when you draw something, there is a fill and a stroke. So the stroke is the outline, the fill is like the body color or something, the object color. So if you make the object really big, your outline will get really skinny because it's not going to scale. Or if you make a big flower and shrink it down, your outline is going to be really thick because it's not going to scale. So we're going to leave this alone unless we make something really big or really small. If you're changing something a little bit, it really won't matter. All right, so this palette looks good. We will look at units. So this is where you can change your units. We're gonna stay with pixels, but you could change it to inches if you wanted to switch. So that is how you change your file. We're going to leave all that alone. Pixels is good. Don't touch stroke or type. Guides and grid. These are the colors of your guides. There are guides that show up that help you line things up. Blue is fine. The grid color. All right. Yours might be gray. Mine is blue. All right. You should have blue or some other color than gray. Yours might be like light gray. You're not going to see it against your background. So I like light blue or medium blue. You can choose any of these colors to change your grid color, because it is really good to use a grid if you're doing precise drawing. If you click on the color box here, you can get a color wheel up and you can change it that way also. I never do, but you could. Subdivisions. This is how many lines are in between each. Like if you had an inch, right now mine says 8, so that means I would have 8 subdivisions between every inch. Okay, so it would be 1/8 of an inch between every line. If you're in fashion, you will be using inches a lot. and you will be using like 8 or 16 or 32 subdivisions. And in fact, in the next class, we will work in inches because we will always create a new file and we will work in inches, so you get used to working in inches. So to are working in inches, you might start out at 8 subdivisions per inch, and then when you do more precise drawing, you would do 16 or 32 subdivisions per inch. For now, we're not going to really worry about it. 10 subdivisions is fine. And now we will click on Smart Guides. These are guides also that you use to line things up and stuff. These colors are fine. So we're going to skip down to User Interface. All right, this is my preference where you see the user interface. There is a brightness here. Right now, you can see we're clicked on the darker. So this is your work area. So right now, your work area is dark gray. I like mine to be white. So where it says canvas color, I like it white because usually you draw on a white background. I'm very surprised that it doesn't open up that way. But I guess that's Adobe's choice. But at least you can clearly see initially what those white squares are your files that you will be printing and working on. So if you draw in the work area, you're not going to be able to print it. So I'm going to click on white. So that's all nice. And everything else is fine. And I will just click OK. All right, so here is our lovely file. If you hit your space bar with your left hand, you can move your file around. So that's a really great shortcut. The other way is to take the hand tool. Right here on my toolbar, you see hand tool, and I'm just moving this around. There's also a magnifying glass at the very bottom, a zoom tool, so you can click and drag to. I drag horizontally. It doesn't seem to like the vertical that much, but it might be different on your screen. Frequently, though, I'm just doing Command minus, Command plus. All right, so we have a basic layout, and now we will be opening up our palettes. So we are done with preferences. The next step is palettes.